This is the 40U Tech Startups podcast. The podcast in which you hear all about the startups and spin-offs from the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands. From the challenges they face to the ecosystems they accelerate in, here we talk about what it takes to flourish and make impact on an international playing field. Brought to you by the 40U.
Hello everyone, welcome to a 4TU podcast special edition with alumni in the Bay Area. And this time we have Quirina de Ruiter, who is from the University of Twente originally, and I am Joe Laufer, also from the University of Twente. I'm an alumni officer at the university, but also an alum. And I'm really excited to be talking to a fellow Twente person, although of course the 4TU includes other alumni, also from Wageningen, Delft, Eindhoven. And what we're going to be doing in the next 15 minutes or so is explore how Quirina got here and what can others perhaps learn from her experiences about doing that step, taking that step from Twente to coming to one of the hottest global spots of innovation. So, Quirina, where are you originally from in the Netherlands?
Well, first, hi, Joe.
Hello,
Thanks for
hello.
having me on your podcast.
Good to have you.
Very excited. I'm from Breda,
Oh,
so
okay.
Brabant.
Uh-huh.
And I made the 3-hour train ride all the way to Twente.
Why Twente and not Eindhoven?
Very good question. Initially, Eindhoven was like my way to go. And I wanted to study biomedical engineering. And I was in the zesde klas, VWO, zes VWO, and I was a bit bored.
Mm-hmm.
And I could get a day off to go to the University of Twente to go and like explore there. So I knew they had another biomedical engineering department there, so I signed up for it. And then I had to sign up for another like master or bachelor degree. So I was like going through the list, and I'm like, technische geneeskunde, what's that?
Which is technical medicine in English.
Medicine, yes. And I'd never heard of it. And as preparation, I applied for like some of these brochures. And when I read it, I was like, oh, wait a second. This is so much cooler than biomedical engineering. So yeah, I signed up. In the end, I went there for technical medicine, and I said goodbye to biomedical engineering.
And of course, people listening to the podcast are now wondering, what exactly is technical medicine? But I'm going to challenge you. Can you, in 30 seconds or less, explain to us what it is?
That's a great question. Technical medicine is, you have to cut this out. Like I should have practiced this. I practiced this for the last 20 years because you have to explain it all the time. So I'm thinking about doing it the American way or the Dutch way.
American way.
The American way. So in America, I always say you have medicine and you become a physician, you're 3 patients, and you have biomedical engineering where you are developing medical devices. But there's a big gap in between of physicians who actually know the most advanced equipment in the hospitals, can actually apply it, integrate it, use it to the maximum capacity. And I think that is where technical medicine is filling a gap, where you get trained to be in a hospital, you do your internships, you get a license to practice, you become a technical physician, but you also have this huge amount of background in physics, chemistry, programming. So you really add value in that hospital.
And of course, like Booking.com and Takeaway, technical medicine is an original Twente product.
Yes, and I was second year. So I started 2004. The program was initiated in 2003. And at that time, it was very uncertain what you were going to be. I think there was a great vision, like you become these technical physicians in the hospital and you're allowed to do surgery. And I think for me, being like that second year, I knew there was uncertainty, but I also really believed in like that vision of I don't want to be any type of physician. I want to be a physician that really brings that value and innovates in healthcare. And I think that comes back to my background, where when I was 5 years old, I just had a medical issue, so I stopped growing.
Mm-hmm.
I was the smallest girl in my class,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, they gave me growing hormones for
Mm-hmm.
actually 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
only figuring out I was allergic to gluten.
No.
Yeah, so I think that's really originated that I spent a lot of time in the hospitals,
Uh-huh.
but also at the same time was like I don't like even when you are a physician, you're not always right.
Right.
Like I saw physicians 4 times a year, but that doesn't mean that they were giving me the right treatment. Like they didn't do their diagnostic process
Uh-huh.
as they should have.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, there was like a very reasonable cause why I didn't grow. Like
So-
I just didn't get enough vitamins in my body. Like
Right.
my body just rejected.
So that was another personal drive to take the study.
Yeah, it's like it's not really becoming a physician. It's becoming like innovating in healthcare and really moving it forward and making sure that we are doing the best for our patients. And does not have to be one-on-one. It does not have to be that you see every patient. If you can find a new cause for a disease or innovate on a medical device, like you're really innovating in that space. So for me, that was the reason to go after technical medicine.
And how does a Breda girl who studied at technical medicine at Twente end up outside of the Netherlands?
Yeah, well, after my master's,
Mm-hmm.
at that time, legally, we were still not allowed to practice independently.
Mm-hmm.
And to the technical medicine program, if you think from like the originated, like the vision was great, but we were not seen similar as physicians in terms of like what you're allowed to do in hospital. We worked under supervision of physicians, but there was always a division you would be working independently. But it took like many, many years to get there.
Obviously, you were the pioneers, and
Yes.
now there's more of a critical mass.
Yes.
But you didn't have that.
We paved that way, and
Right.
it happened there. So when I graduated, the logical reason, if you wanted to stay in hospital, was to do a PhD. And in my case, I did a PhD together with Philips in UMC Utrecht at the vascular surgery department. And during that time, I connected with Philips. So when I was almost ready to graduate, there was an opportunity for Philips in the United States to work in the US at a research lab. And initially, it was not on my map to work for Philips, but I really wanted to go to the US. I wanted to do more research. If you are in a research environment, you feel like all those conferences in the US, all those big institutions, like that's where it's happening. Like I want to feel that, I want to learn there, and I want to go there.
And was living and working outside of the Netherlands a dream you had, like growing up, or is it something that slowly evolved?
It evolved, but I think it's also you need to align your career with your partner. So at the time we were together, my partner and I were together for 4 years. Also, he studied in Twente.
Right.
We met in Twente, and he was wrapping up his traineeship. I was wrapping up my PhD, and at the time, I remember the moment very clearly. He was on a 6-month time in Switzerland, and we were looking forward to the future. Like, hey, what's going to be next for us? And we both had this feeling like, well, if we want to go abroad, like now is the time. And we initially thought like, hey, he works for a big corporate company, like higher chance he will get that expat contract. So he wanted to he really wanted to go to Africa. And I was like, well, I am in the scientific career and like medical direction in the US, like that's where I want to be. So I want to go to the US. And but yeah, I was more looking into like that postdoc direction. And for that, you need to find a spot, you need to write a grant. So I was kind of like starting to look around. And then this Philips opportunity came around the corner. And we both looked at each other like, hey, this is our opportunity because they will help us to move abroad and ship all our goods and pave that way for us to have like a nice landing.
So I guess tip number 1, get a company to help you pave the way.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
They will help you get that visa. They will help you with the move. Like if you do it yourself, like you probably come with 2 suitcases here, which is fine too. Like, but we had the privilege that we could ship an entire container, bring all even our like 10-year-old secondhand couch that we still have. We brought it with us, and it just makes you feel more at home, I think, when you land in that first house. So I think that was it was really great to have that opportunity. And
where was the first stop in the U.S.?
Connecticut,
Okay.
Yale University.
Hmm. And how was that experience? Was it different than studying in the Netherlands?
Very different. So the setup was that I was working for Philips. My manager would be in the Netherlands, but I would be supporting this research lab at Yale. Philips had put some equipment out there, and my role was to help them in any kind of research they were doing, help them to use the equipment to the advantage, and help them to support and write papers. So it was not a real postdoc, but sponsored by a company, which gave some benefits for me, but also some downsides there.
Hmm. And after Connecticut?
Yeah, so the Connecticut story was very short-lived. That first job was not really what we expected from it.
Hmm.
It took about to go to the US, like companies sponsored the visa, but even that process can be very lengthy. So for me, I never worked before for Philips, so we applied for a O1 visa.
Hmm.
They say like it's a Nobel Prize visa. You need to show all your evidence.
Hmm.
But I hadn't had my PhD yet, so it took about 6 to 8 months to make that happen.
Hmm. And after?
Well, my husband was able to get an intercompany transfer through his company at Unilever, so he could then get an L1.
Hmm.
And that was like arranged like a month, so it was easier to get there. So that first year of like you get a job, you get married, you have to well, it's just easier to get married if you want to go abroad. So we gave like a surprise wedding for our friends on King's Night, and
Nice.
it was really great. And then months I finished my PhD. My husband already moved to the US because his job started. I was still waiting for my visa. Finally was there 3 months in, my visa got approved. 1 month, I was working for 1 month, and the professor I was supposed to work with was removed from his job, from the institution. So this entire job, as we had planned it out, was not going to be there anymore, which also meant that my position was at risk. And in the end, also, they didn't. It's not that they didn't continue, but the environment that I chose to work for wasn't there anymore. So then I could we already were in the US. My husband also moved with me. We were there, and so then it's a question like, what are you gonna do? Like, well, you're just like 3 months in. You're not like, my manager said like, I have a job for you in the Netherlands. It's like, yeah, no way we're coming back. Like, we've been waiting for a full year here. Like, come on, like, that's not what we were signing up for. So I think that was also a good point of like revisiting, like, hey, what else is there out there? Do I want to go back to like a postdoc job? While I was already in the US, it was a lot easier. Postdocs are a way easier way to get to the US. And so that's what I did. I found a very great research lab at the National Institute of Health, and I started a postdoc there.
And where was this?
This is in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, I was bounded to the East Coast because my husband worked in New Jersey. So I could not say like, hey, we just moved to New Jersey, but I'm going to California. Like, he was like, that's not going to happen. So I was a bit bounded to like in a circle around New Jersey for this next job.
So what was your ticket to come here to the West Coast, come to California?
Yeah, like the National Institute of Health is an absolutely great place to do research. Like if you want to go to the US, they have many postdocs. They're funded within the government. So I really, really enjoyed my time there. I learned so much. But then after a couple of years, it was not really a place to, like, I wanted to continue my career. It was just like a time to really learn. And it was COVID, and I was writing my papers, and I just really did not enjoy the writing of those papers. It was like, do I really want to continue an academic career to do this all the time and writing grants? It's just not really what makes me happy, and it was so slow. And at the same time, my husband found a job just pre-COVID in Los Angeles, so he was able to transition within the company to this job in Los Angeles. And then COVID hit. It happened. It was just like pre-COVID. I was in LA. looking for a job too. And then all my leads in LA were like fainted like, overnight. But I already announced at my current job, like, hey, I'm probably gonna leave. And then my PI at the NIH, he was great and like extended my contract like 6 months by 6 months. So I could have the opportunity to like really find that next position. And the good thing actually was because of COVID, my husband's job became remote. So we had a lot more flexibility, but we always wanted to go to California. That was our big like dream, I think. The East Coast was great. We loved Washington, D.C., but we also, after a couple, 3-4 years in the winter, there's not that much to do in D.C. And for us, it was like, California was like the bigger dream. Like I always wanted to go to San Francisco. Like this is where the medtech happens, in Silicon Valley. Like I want to be there. And because of the fact that his job became remote, I had a bit more opportunities to look from San Francisco to LA and San Diego. And yeah, it was hard because at some point I made the decision like, hey, I don't want to go back to academia. I'm going to look for companies. But like, how do you start? Like, how do you get your way in? And it was hard.
How do you?
Yeah.
So how did your current job, for example, you work for a company called Intuitive?
Yes, Intuitive Surgical.
How did you get a job there?
Yeah, so go back. Like Intuitive Surgical is a surgical robotics company, and they are the manufacturers of the Da Vinci robot. And this robot is able to perform. I have to say it correctly, otherwise I get my.
No problem.
So you can skip this out, but the Da Vinci robot for prostate surgery, and this robot is already the first one. It's a 30-year-old company, and when I started to study technical medicine, like the Da Vinci robot was already on display. Like, hey, these robots are coming to the market. This is what's going to happen. That's why we're building this technical medicine program. But I never really was into the robotics area. I was more an imaging kind of girl, and specifically interventional imaging. And that's what I worked at Philips for. I did internships in radiation therapy. I loved the way how you can use imaging to guide your intervention and improve your accuracy. But I also realized like imaging is a way to see. And we had better software to visualize these tumors in the liver and how these vessels and arteries are like feeding these tumors. But then we had a limitation on our tools or devices to get there. And I kind of realized it's like, well, robotics are able to solve that problem. And then I think the robotic companies came onto my radar. It's like, hey, like I was looking in this niche of like imaging companies, like go back to Philips, Canon is in this area. What are other medical device companies that are imaging? And then I realized like, wait a second, robotics needs imaging too. Like they need guidance software to know where they are. So that was my pitch kind of to these robotics companies is like, hey, imaging becomes more and more important, AI and all. I think that's my sweet spot. Like you're really good in doing these robots, but hey, I can help with the imaging side. So.
Hey, and living in San Francisco, the dream compared to the reality, does it live up?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
What are your favorite things about living in the Bay Area?
I think my favorite thing is we have like the climate. First of all, like the weather is absolutely great. It's never too hot or too cold. We're living close to the ocean, although it's too cold to swim most of the time. But then we have the mountains. We have all these different climates. We have converted a little camper van. During COVID, we already drove through all the states except Alaska and Hawaii.
You've been busy.
We've been busy. We've seen all the national parks, most like within this boundary. So our van is our way out of the valley. 4 hours away from here, you can go skiing. We have ski passes. We go hiking. Yeah, it's this way where you can, like every weekend is a party. You can really enjoy the life here. And yeah, it's great.
And both you and your husband have attended alumni events that we've organized in the past year. Were you surprised at the 4TU footprint in the Bay Area?
I was I thought there would be more here, but
Hmm.
maybe it like sometimes we think that the Bay Area is like one village, but in the end, the Bay Area, South Bay towards San Francisco and Oakland, like
Hmm.
that's like the entire Amsterdam, Utrecht, Rotterdam. So it's even though we're all living here, it's sometimes still like we still can live far away from each other
Hmm. Because we have over 1,000 alumni living in this
around here.
area.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you leveraged the network?
Um, Not specifically for work, but definitely you navigate towards other people who come from your same university. You have that background. So, in my case, I'm already gonna meet a few more people that I've met before, and we have a little Dutchy South Bay Dutchy group
Hmm.
that we meet regular with. We go skiing with the group, and I just told you like 3 out of 6 we all started in 2004 at in Twente, and we all lived like within 100 meters from each other on campus. And we never knew each other until we all like found each other here through one of these alumni events.
Hmm. So you never know if the person down the street might be a fellow alum
Yeah,
from the 4TU.
exactly. Yeah.
I see. And do you have tips to offer people considering relocating, or perhaps their dream is to somehow get to California? What would you say are the steps to take?
Well, I think the first step is like you really want to go to California.
Hmm.
Like I think just saying that out loud, like I don't know, it's like I'm not really like a manifesting girl, but I think really having that target on your like, hey, I want to go to California. That's where I want to live. Like I think that's the first step,
Hmm.
and then the second step is thinking about what are your unique skills. I think having a PhD really benefits here in the Bay Area. Definitely all in the United States is much more valued sometimes than in the Netherlands. So use it as your leverage, and then figuring out which like what are the companies that are around here that you want to work for that you really believe in. And for me, like Intuitive was my number one company. If I'm gonna work in robotics, like I want to work for this company that's been doing this for 30 years. Like there's so much to learn from them, and they know what they're doing. And I want to be part of that to build that next generation of robotics.
Hmm. So obviously, to do that research, an alumni network could be one of the first
Oh,
steps.
absolutely. Yes, I'm surprised that people tell me like, "Hey, I applied for this internship at your company." It's like, why didn't you reach out? Like the way that we can help either for an internship or for a job locally here, we have the local knowledge, and we can instantly like it's really hard to if you have found that company, then you have to find like what is that specific job I want to go for. And I was very lucky that like initially I was not even at Intuitive. Um, they t- it was hard to get in initially, but when you're in, then using referrals is a big way to attract other talent.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's important that you leverage that network. Like if you have found that company that you're really interested in, that you think that aligns with your mission, looking up who is working at that company that works at the network, at the 4TU network,
Hmm.
and then just sending them a LinkedIn message like,
I mean,
I reply.
in the example of Intuitive, we were just a few days ago at Intuitive
Yes.
visiting the company with our startups,
Yes.
and we had a mafia of alumni there
Yeah.
opening the door for us.
It was really great. And they're all from Twente.
Yeah.
We have 4 now at the
Hmm.
company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's wonderful. It's great to have ambassadors in these global brands
Yes.
that are really having an impact on our lives. What about the experience of working? Do you find it's very different, the norms in the Netherlands compared to the norms here on the West Coast?
I think California is it's very how do you say that?
Laid back,
Laid back.
would you say? Hmm.
What I really appreciate here is that it doesn't really matter how you like what you dress at work.
Hmm.
Like I've colleagues come in their shorts or like hiking boots, shoes. Nobody really cares. Like if if you show up in a skirt as a guy, like I love working with you because you really um, diversity makes it all better,
Okay.
and I think that's really here in the area. It's
Hmm.
um, diverse teams in the end win over non-diverse teams. So it's great that we can bring that together here.
Hmm. And if we look 5 years down the road, hopefully you'll visit the states you're missing with your camper.
Yes,
But
Alaska.
but where do you and your partner hope to be in 5 years?
Well, we're not really big planners.
Okay.
We take it year by year. We look at each other once in a while and we look like, hey, are we still happy here? And I think when you want to change, it's really important that like one of us cannot be happy. Like it can be that one of us wants to have a different job direction, or we've seen everything around it. Like every weekend we try to do a different hike. Like maybe at some point we've seen all the hikes, or maybe you can do the same hikes in different seasons. But I think we're taking like year by year. 2 3 years from now, we're definitely next 2 years we're here, but maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. We don't know yet. It's like we have that freedom. The whole part of moving to the US is having that freedom, that you have the confidence that you can always find another opportunity, and that gives you like less stress and you can enjoy life a lot more that way of living.
So another tip you would have for people is plan less, enjoy more.
Well, you can plan on like if you have that goal,
Right.
like our goal is to go to California and both have a job here. Great. And then the 150% mark is like both have a job and we can both back to work. Check. We just reached that point a couple months ago. And I think now it's also the time to enjoy. Like you've worked really hard for it, and you don't always have to change all the things, but it can also change if one of us is not happy in a job anymore, or we're not happy where we're living anymore, or we're like looking for the next adventure. Like I'm not gonna say when or how, but yeah, we're definitely adventurous people. Like we just went to Belize and Guatemala and Honduras and went diving at like 30 meters deep. Yeah, life is an adventure.
You're open to suggestions.
I'm always open to suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And if the people listening also have dreams of relocating to interesting places around the world, don't forget your alumni networks and your alumni offices. So we are one of those checks for you to reach out to. Perhaps we can help and connect you to people like Quirina. So Quirina, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much for having me.